let's bring in the person that really needs no introduction, but that the one that we really want to hear from. So, ladies and gentlemen, a nice, loud, warm welcome for Dan Ackroyd. Let's go in different directions. I'm getting more pointing. Keep that clapping coming because apparently he's coming in right now. There he is, Dan Ackroyd. I am well. How are you?
All right. You know, we could give it a lot more. Well, the room, there should be more people enjoying this. I don't know what happened. Why are they keeping people out? You guys taking your class 10?
Let's check. Abraham, are there more people outside still trying to make their way in?
We can wait.
Yeah, if so, maybe we can encourage them to jostle their way in. Have a seat.
Sure, especially kids. I'll keep the language PG.
Don't worry, mine's passed out.
By the way, my brother Michael
We're
Murphy.
going to wait for our other guests, too. We've got a couple of people.
Oh, do we?
I guess, right?
Really?
We have Ivan, or do we have Ernie? All right, well. No, I can fly. I can fly solo. I'm a lone wolf.
Okay, Mr. Lone Wolf. Got some questions for you.
Sure.
Well, first off, thank
all of you. Thanks and welcome. Well, all over the world, Germany, Australia, England, all over the U.S. and Canada, wonderful. So great, and all the kits look really great. The outfits look fantastic. The uniforms, the equipment. It's humbling, it's gratifying, really neat.
So, Dan, last night during the screening, you mentioned the work of your great-grandfather, Dr. Sam Ackroyd. And so that harkens back to the spiritualist era, mediumship, seances, and I believe it was your father that would peek into some of these seances. Is that accurate?
Yeah, my dad wrote a book, History of Ghosts. I think you can still get it on Amazon. Lowdale is supposed to digitally release it, but I believe there are copies left on Amazon, and many of you I know have ordered it and read about it. Yeah, you know. Your podcast is quite popular, and you probably have treated it before. Yeah. What happened was, like, in the 1800s, like between the 1840 and the turn of the century, a lot of religions had been at work in America. You had Protestantism, you had Catholicism in Maryland, you had Mormonism work its way across, and kind of, people were a little burned out in the Bible Belt of upstate New York with conventional religion, and they were looking for something new, something to believe in beyond just the dogma of a conventional religious stricture. So things started to happen up there where they were more open-minded about perhaps, that there's something beyond life, and consciousness can survive and life can survive. And the Fox sisters in Hydesville, New York, had a little home there, and things started to happen, rappings, knockings, and the sisters began to respond to them, and the knockings would respond back to them, and they excavated in the basement after some time, after this went on, and found a body there, skeletal remains, of someone they figured was a salesman who'd been killed by one of the owners of the cabin. And they called him Mr. Splitfoot, and in fact, they toured with him, that did stuff in arenas all over the world. And you can go on your search engine and look up the headlines. Fox Sisters in France, Fox Sisters, you see them touring as stars around the world. Now, at the end of their lives, Margaret Fox said a lot of it was faking, and she was using her foot, because sometimes they lose their powers. But I think a lot of the Fox sisters' occurrences were quite genuine. So from that just triggered a whole community up there in Lilydale, New York, of people who believe in mediumship and believe in the afterlife and the survival of consciousness after death. And
Lilydale.
yeah.
I'm from Lilydale.
And you
That's
wrote the
crazy.
foreword.
Are you really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Are
crazy.
you gifted or
No.
You, no?
No.
But you can go to your neighbors and get a
Yes.
reading. Yeah.
That's great.
No, it's great. It's in Chautauqua, New York.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful part of the world. The lake there and everything. A wonderful. Experience if you've never, if you want to go to the best mediums in the world. In the summer, they all gather there and you go to their cottages and pay, and they all have a registration number, and they're all very, very gifted. Yeah,
That's great.
yeah.
And you wrote the foreword to that book, correct?
I did, yes, yeah. My dad did all the research, and it was because we found my great-grandfather's journals. He was the reviewer in town of anybody who was coming through that claimed to have a psychic gift, a medium, a levitator, a precipitated painter, and he would say, "No, that's a fake, that's a hoax. Oh, it could be something real here," and he'd write it up. And he wrote it up in his journals, and we found his little scribblers down in the damn trunks full, and that's what my dad based the book on. And indeed, it was his work that brought the psychic journals and the research journals into our house very early. He was into it. My grandfather was a Bell telephone engineer. He was into it. My dad was a road engineer, a civil engineer. So they dealt in numbers and tangents and angles and joules and gigajoules and megawatts. They were men of science, and they saw that there was something beyond the physical world, in the invisible world we can't explain, and wanted to make inquiry. And that's why we're all here today, because my great-grandfather Sam, thank you, Sam Ackroyd, yeah.
And you mentioned the book and the journaling and such, and also in the foreword, you mentioned how the legacy of the family creates like a long shadow, and it passes down through generations. But towards the end of the shadow, it starts to sort of fade away. So does this interest in the paranormal, does it, in your family, in the Ackroyds, does it stop with you? Or your kids, have they picked up the ball as well?
Well, I don't think they're going to go into it professionally. They're not going to start a ghost hunting society, but certainly, they're interested and will make inquiry, but they're on other career ideas and career paths. For a while there, we'd take pictures of Stella, our youngest child, and there were little globs of light we couldn't explain in there. Orbs, the orb phenomenon is quite spectacular, what's going on there. You have Polaroids and you have digital photos with globs of light around war memorials and hospitals and stuff, and the Travel Entertainment Channel really treats hauntings well, and they talk about the orbs. And those are spirits just kind of poke through trying to contact us, and they're appealing. They want to be with us again.
So with spirit communication, especially within a family or people that are very close one way or another.
Well, twins are telepathic. Many twins are telepathic. We know this, yeah.
Which was my question going to be to you. Do you believe that any of this information that started with your grandfather may have been transmitted to you telepathically?
I don't think so, no. It was mainly just all the publications were there. He was subscribed to the American Society for Psychical Research journals. We knew about his stories, and my dad talked about the seances, and so that tradition was passed down. The seances continued well into the late 40s, and we had our own medium, Walter Ashurst. He was a locomotive mechanic. He walked up to my great-grandfather one day and said, "I think I have a gift." He became the family medium, and every Sunday these big black Dodges and Packards and Cadillacs would roll into the farmhouse, and the women would come out, matrons, dressed like Margaret Dumont, and the husbands, and they'd roll in there, and my great-grandfather would sit, and he was the impresario, and it was a show for 90 minutes, an hour and a half seance, and Walter would go into full, open, gaping mouth trances. He would transform his body. If he was channeling someone that was completely foreign, he'd speak in foreign tongues, and he was very effective. And so it was mainly that. It was the seances. It was the books that we were reading all the time, the Fate magazine, and just that, here I am, my grandfather talking about it, my father talking about it. Of course, I'm going to believe. So the belief was passed down that way, just from orally and also hearing stories. My mother was nursing me at 1 year old in the farmhouse. No, I was like 1 month old. And she kind of woke up out of a sleep and then looked up, and there were two people standing at the edge of the bed, and she cried out to my father, and the images vanished, and she described them to my father, and he said, "Oh, that's Dr. Sam Ackroyd and his wife, Ellen Jane Wemp. I mean, that's, they're coming to welcome the child." And he showed her a picture in one of the family journals, so she said, "That's them, yeah." And my mother was, not she was not made to be a believer. She was a pretty tough French-Canadian Catholic skeptic, so, yeah.
Which leads to some of the audience questions. So before you came in, we were just having a little chat, and so I wrote down some of them. Are there any cases that have been documented that you remain doubtful of the authenticity of them?
Oh, I think that, there's thousands and thousands that can be explained and thousands of stories. And I think if you look at Hans Holzer's work, he sorted out the real from the fake. And in there, he isolates a few, where they were, it's like some of those old movies, Abbott and Costello ghost movies. In the end, it wasn't a ghost; it was somebody mechanically manipulating stuff. That it's that kind of stuff. But there's so much real going on there. I think the hoaxers are fewer than the real occurrences everywhere. There's such great stories. The ghost of Flight 401. The guy who was haunting an airplane that crashed. Haunting from an airplane, from the part of an airplane that crashed, and haunting a flight crews and warning them about, engine fires and stuff. And they tracked him down. His name was Don Repo, and he was a flight engineer killed in a crash. And they took a part from that crash and put it in the new L-1011 because the galley elevator failed, and they took that. And when they removed the part, the haunting stopped. And then they did an intervention with his family to try to help his soul cross over. The Ghost of Flight 401. Check it out. Beautiful story. Yeah.
So it sounds like this material, an inanimate object, takes on a bit of consciousness.
They're animate. Well, spirits are animate. What are they being animated by? What's going on? I would love a physicist, a chemist, and someone to break it down subatomically for me. What is going on there? What are they harnessing? Is it just the oxygen and nitrogen in our ether? How are they coalescing? How does an image, a full torso image of a pilot from basically the legs up to head and the stripes on his sleeve, how does a stewardess in Eastern Airlines report that? How does her colleague report it? How do dozens of report it? How does that happen? How is that appearing to those people? So much so that the Eastern Airlines psychiatrists and psychologists had to say, don't talk about this. People will not fly on Eastern Airlines anymore if they think there's a ghost on the airplanes. And so I would love to have it broken down. You see, there hasn't been enough real serious scientific inquiry on that electrochemical level. What's going on there?
You may have just answered one of the questions of a gentleman that's right there nodding. He was wondering if there'd be technology that would someday be developed that could prove the existence of discarnate personalities.
Well, NO2, freezing with NO2 is a theory that if you could, get near it and get your NO2 blaster on it and then basically freeze it, that you could probably get an image or a picture or maybe even some material from it. A woman in New Jersey, I forget her name, she's an Oriental scientist, Asian origin scientist, and she has frozen light. She's frozen light. They're freezing light. So they freeze light. Maybe they could freeze a discarnate entity, and we could get a piece of it or a picture of it, or somehow get that kind of proof. But there's so much photographic evidence today, and film and video of things and shapes, and so I think for those who don't believe, well, you maybe never believe until you see it, but it's not hard to believe today. It really isn't when you see the preponderance of all these shows. Before our movie came out, no one knew what ectoplasm was. Now millions of people know what ectoplasm is, and it's stimulated this entire interest in the paranormal and supernatural research. Every county in America has a ghost hunting society, and it makes inquiry now. So it's conventional science can no longer hide this interest from the public.
So, considering the book that was published and the work of your great-grandfather, how did you make that transition to using technology in Ghostbusters, the movie, when prior to it, it was mediumship?
Right. Well, you had institutions like Duke University and the American Society for Psychical Research conducting control of galvanic response and remote viewing stuff, and they were using technology there. And I read an article about quantum physics and parapsychology, and the guy laid out just a theory there about, well, it could be possible, using certain theories of, particulate matter and particle physics to maybe get a stream out there that was powered by a powerful electron volt generator, something with that kind of high power, and that would be quantum physics would be the path towards an actual trapping mechanism. So this was kind of he didn't lay it out quite as much as I developed it, but I read it and I thought, I can see, and then I saw the trap, and I saw the pack, and I saw how you marry the two, and basically developed a system from that, and had my friend John DeVicus draw it up.
So, is there any actual work being done to construct something like a
It would be very expensive. You'd be,
Sure.
it's like would be taking Chernobyl and reducing it to the size of a backpack, so or a cyclotron, or the CERN cyclotron, so. But someday, hey, everything's miniaturized now, a UNIVAC 3000 from 1958 is now, it fits in your phone, so maybe someday. But I think science has other things to take care of, disease, feeding our planet when climate change is going to make that very difficult. So there is other areas of science I'd like to see pursued, but hey, anybody out there wants to make inquiry into the supernatural, the paranormal, I certainly am not going to stop them.
Science does make amazing leaps, amazing discoveries. It's only a few short centuries ago that it wasn't believed that you could create electricity, that you could generate it. Sure, there'd be thunderstorms, but it's not like creating electricity that we all take for granted now.
Yeah.
And so I guess we'll see what happens within the next few hundred years, right?
And it's going to, just the next 5 years, it's going to tetrahedrally explode. And we're going to see so many great developments that are going to help mankind. And also, we're going to see developments that are going to place science in the wrong hands of some actors out there who are going to use it to repress freedom and to suppress, the defense capabilities of their enemies, especially what's going on in space now, development of some of these particle beam weapons and rail guns, and trying to knock out satellites. There's people up to no good out there.
Now, regarding personal experiences, because anybody here who has had a personal paranormal experience, and raise your hand if you have. So it looks like maybe 70% of the room, rough estimate. Once you have that personal experience, then you're a believer, and it's like you don't need any more proof when you've already experienced it. Mm-hmm. You have had experiences.
Well, yeah, I think I felt the presence of a spirit once when I was alone at the house we lived in, Mama Cass's old house up in Woodrow Wilson Drive in LA there, and I think something definitely got into bed with me one night. What am I going to do about it? Have your way with me. I wiggled up next to it, went to sleep, and I remember one night Donna and I were in that bed there, and her jewelry started to do a little dance on the bed, and I looked over. It was as if it was a little tornado. We're picking her bracelets up and whirling them around, and we were nowhere near them. And now the current owner of the house says that occurs on the mantelpiece in that bedroom. She'll leave something there, and she'll see it kind of pop around, And she's had experiences as well with feelings and, service personnel coming and going and getting touched, on the shoulder, that like our Mexican angels did. We had two beautiful women that still work with us, and they felt the presences at Woodrow Wilson, Yeah,
certainly, that's what led me into the paranormal, having personal experiences at my parents' house.
Tell us, please.
Well, I was alone. I could hear somebody on the second floor walking back and forth. Being that I don't even think I was 12 or 13 years old, I ran to the kitchen. I grabbed, of all things, a meat tenderizer. What am I going to do with that? And I went and searched every room of the house. I don't know what my intention was with the meat tenderizer, but it just felt like something I could swing in case it was an intruder. I couldn't find anybody. Went back downstairs, and the footsteps happened again, walking across the upstairs of the house. I don't know what it was, who it was, but it was something there.
Well, did you ever make inquiry to try to find out who it might have been, or?
Yeah.
Because that's what has, yeah, really, and
Yeah.
found out.
Well, it ended up being where visitors to the house would see this figure. Now, I didn't see this figure, I heard footsteps. And I wasn't a visitor to the house, I was living there as a child. When I went back to visit my parents' house after I moved to California in 1989, I went back in 1992. And in 1992, visiting my parents, they're moving along in age, then I saw what other visitors had been describing. My parents didn't even flinch when I froze, jumped up off the love seat. I was facing them, so sofa's there, love seat's here. I thought it was a cat, actually, walking into the room. It was like I saw it against that oatmeal-colored carpet. So I thought it was like a little small cat, and I realized it was a foot, and then it was a leg, and I realized it was a whole figure, and it walked between my parents and myself. And I stood up, and it went like through a doorway, like it was very cognizant of the physical layout of the house. And my parents just leaned back and they go, "Tell us what you saw." I described it, and they said, "That is what the visitors to this house described." So I was now the visitor and hadn't been there for several years. So really, my journey into researching the paranormal began in 1992 after that.
Something was happening there, coalescing a vivid apparition, and I'd love to know again, electrochemically, magnetically, what's going on there, biochemically, on that kind of level. But sure, wow, that's a nice vivid sighting you had there. Probably a resident of the house before, owner or disgruntled spirit on that site that just couldn't cross over.
It was, later when I tried to research these types of apparitions, they've been described as shadow people. And it had the wide-brimmed hat. And I was like trying to rationalize it, and I said, is this some sort of government remote viewing exercise, and I am somehow able to visualize peering in psychically into my parents'
Well, the man in the black fedora is a phenomenon all over the world now.
I know.
That people are seeing, like the black-eyed children and stuff like that. They're rare sightings, quite frightening. Yeah, but Hans Holzer's book is amazing. It's as thick as the Bible, and it's just got all the greatest cases in the world. All wonderful stuff. Yeah. And then, of course, there's available. You can on your search engine. There's the girl ghost on the Queen Mary on the Queen Mary in Long Beach Harbor. I think her name's Rebecca or Rachel. She died in the swimming pool.
Jackie.
Becky, yeah.
Jackie.
Jackie. That's right. Yeah. There's many pictures of her. She's seen all of the time there, and there are also other spirits in that boat. That's a fun night to spend. Hey, next year, let's all get staterooms on the Queen Mary and walk around. Yeah.
I think everybody likes that idea.
No, that's one of the haunted places on the planet. Yeah.
And one of the aspects of the Queen Mary, as well as other locations, is people are able to record electronic voice phenomena.
All the time.
And the EVPs that people are able to record on the Queen Mary, for decades, the voice has the same cadence. So when you put it into a spectrum analyzer, it looks like what you're seeing, the visual representation, indicates that it's the same voice. And when you listen to it, there are similarities to this voice. I have wondered if it was a thought form as opposed to a spirit of a little girl, and it becomes reinforced the more people look for Jackie, the more this thought form is being reinforced and manifesting in one way or another.
Interesting. Wow. That's neat to think that it's not just the residue of spiritual energy of people who've lived there and have even moved on and left some behind, but that their thoughts could generate an image or an apparition. Yeah, well, thoughts are important, man. What you put out there in life, you become. So positive energy, right? Keep it high, keep it, look at that horizon, keep that light on it. Don't succumb to the dark thoughts.
Yeah. My wife Anita here wanted me to mention to you that my brother Michael Murphy and Celista wanted to extend a hello to you because you worked with them, of course, very well.
Of course, yeah, right, wonderful. What's he up to there? Does he live out in the southeastern U.S.?
He had a house here,
Yeah.
in Laurel Canyon, and he has a house in New Orleans.
Yeah.
So they spend all the time in New Orleans now.
Yeah, no.
He's working on a new film.
He helped us start House of Blues and get it going, yeah.
Yes, he certainly did.
Please say hello.
I will. I'll tell him hello. And that was a great party at the House of Blues. Thank you.
Always there, yeah.
So, what's next for you in the Ghostbuster universe? Is there anything that you wanted to share that you didn't share last night, or maybe not everybody in the audience was?
Just we got the anniversary edition coming out. That's going to have all kinds of extra footage on there. There's going to be a vinyl release of the album. I think Rodale Press may do a digital re-release of the History of Ghosts. We've got all kinds, as you'll see, around lots of neat merchandising ideas for toys and stuff to keep it going. And of course, we've got the Jason Reitman script that we'll be making this summer. Yeah, it's really, really good. I was very moved when I read it. It's neat.
And is there anything that you're willing to share about the new movie that?
Just that it just magnificently passes the torch to a new generation, and I see some children in here, and you know what's happening is you've got grandparents who passed it to one generation, and then to the next. We have grandchildren and great-grandchildren now are being inducted into the Ghostbusters Cadet Corps, and so it helps to it's going to help to pass it along to the next generation for them to embrace it and take it where they want it to go.
It really has become like almost like a family institution. You know, if you grew up with it and you have kids, like my son right there, Ian, why don't you wave to Dan? So that's my son.
Yes, sir. Good.
Yeah, and so he's. I told everybody else before you walked in, but when last night going to the movie, I said, Ian, you want to go see the screening? And he said, yeah. And he says, can I wear my Ghostbusters costume? And I said, from when you were like 7? And he's like, no, a brand new one. And he built this brand new one. And so here he is with his friend Dom. So, and now he's got a son, so it makes me a grandfather. We have all the toys, so well, he does.
They gotta go, yeah. And all the patches, by the way, from every individual chapter look really great. Really great. That's I've got a nice collection now. Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of vehicles out there too, all different sorts.
Really something else.
Very creative crowd.
So good, and you know, the good works that the Ghostbusters do around North America for charity and for children's causes, and they lend their hard work on the equipment and the vehicles and the jumpsuits and the whole look of it, the whole feel of it. They lend it to good causes. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
I know you're going to have another 10 minutes. You said you had another.
Hey, we're all here.
You cleared that? Okay. Very good.
Take full advantage of our, of our presence together here. Yeah.
Wonderful, thank you, because there's a lot more I think people would like to know. Because last night you showed some outtakes, and is there anything from Ghostbusters, either one of them, first one or the second one, that was edited out that you would have liked to have seen remain in the film?
Well, yes, Bill Murray and Sigourney, Bill and some of his stuff that he worked out with Sigourney, there was some great dialogue there that you just couldn't put it all in. Just in the second movie, his interaction with the little babies,
Yes.
baby. So much fun. There was a lot of that could have stayed in there. And in the first movie, just, him sort of trying to entice Sigourney into a relationship. It was really funny. There was reels and reels of that they had to cut out.
Yeah, I imagine there was a lot, because even looking at the outtakes, it looks like everybody, yourself included, had a whole lot of fun making the movie. There appeared to be a little bit of ad-libbing that was going on as well.
Oh, well, yes, especially with Murray. Now, Harold and I, because we had to sell exposition and our theoretical science, we had to stay on script mostly. But
You mentioned that in writing elsewhere that you felt that was one of the contributing factors that makes the movie connect with an audience. That you guys really did stay true to the characters, even though there was comic relief throughout the movie. You were taking your job serious, what you were doing.
Yeah. I mean, we used real terms and the real science and the real vernacular and a real belief of it that I had. Harold was not a believer, but we ignited my belief into what became the movie. And, it was a beautiful process writing it with him. Yeah.
Being that you had a lot of inspiration and a lot of writings within your family, a lot of knowledge that's been passed down. Just out of curiosity, how long did it take to write this script? Because it's not a simple movie. There's a lot going on.
Well, once I had the idea and I had the system, I had devised what this equipment was going to look like, who these guys were. It was pretty fast. And I was interrupted by John Belushi's death. I was typing a line for him. See, originally I wanted Belushi, Eddie Murphy, myself, and then a mystery. We didn't know who else, who the fourth one would be. And so I was in the middle of a line. So that stopped me, John's death stopped me writing. But then after that, I spent that next summer, I guess, doing it over a couple of months. And it helped distract me. So I wrote it mostly up at the farm there, at the farmhouse in Canada, the old haunted farmhouse, yeah. Sitting on the front porch, listening to the creaks and moans and, Labatt 50 and, as writers do, 4 hours a day, 4 hours in the morning, 4 hours in the afternoon, 4 hours at night. And you come up with pages, eventually, if you stay there long enough.
So am I understanding you correctly that John Belushi was going to be used?
Oh yeah, I was writing a line for him. He was going to be me, Belushi, and Eddie Murphy, and one other that we hadn't determined. We didn't know who was going to be at that point. Now, this is way prior to, of course, Billy and Harold's and Ivan's involvement. This is the first draft words I was writing when John died.
Has that been published someplace else? I was not aware of
so.
that.
Oh yeah, I think so. Yeah, I had to get up and then run from the typewriter down to tell Judy before she saw it or heard it on the papers or on the radio. I remember running from 23rd Street, 5th Avenue down to Morton Street in the Village, like running, and going past the newsstands and seeing Belushi dead at 33 on the newsstands. She can't see this before I get there, so I ran in and I had to tell her. That's tough,
Yeah, that was a tough time. Yeah. It's like many of us here probably know where you were and what you were doing when you learned that news.
Yeah, well, it was like, I guess I felt as if I was a chaplain in the army coming to tell the widow that the husband had been killed in battle. They have to do that all the time. It's a psychological trauma comes with it.
And I wasn't...
Not to mention hers, hearing that her husband had died.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I was going to, out of respect for feelings, and I didn't want to tread into any of those sensitive...
All subjects are open.
Really? Okay.
Absolutely, wide open.
All right. Well, let me ask you, do you feel that John has been able to communicate in any way from the afterlife to you?
I have a great story. Dr. Isaac Tigert, the brilliant designer of House of Blues. We have 13 of them around the country now. It's owned by Live Nation. If you've ever been to a House of Blues, a Foundation Room, Cleveland, we got them in New Orleans. They're beautiful venues, and Isaac Tigert designed them. After John died, he did a meditation with the woman he worked with, Phyllis Crystal, who was an amazing seer and gifted clairvoyant. And they went into a deep trance, and Belushi appeared in the stepping between. He had 1 foot in one side of a windowsill and one of another, and he couldn't move through. He couldn't pick up, and he said, "I need to see my nana. I need to see my nana now." How would Tigert know that that's what Belushi called his grandmother? So he said he had to see his nana. I said that's what he used to call his grandmother. So Isaac said, "Well, can I do an intervention with Phyllis and try to help him cross?" And I said, "Please do," and he did. And there's been nothing from John since. Al Franken went to bungalow number 3 where John died and spent a night there. And he said that John sat on the bed next to him and appeared to him vividly for at least 2 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, that's riveting. That's
And that was prior to Isaac's enabling the crossover. Shortly it was a couple of weeks after his death that Franken rented the bungalow.
And I met Isaac. I mean, through
Good.
Michael.
Sure. Yeah, Michael Murphy. Sure you go. Yeah.
Took me to Isaac's house.
Mm-hmm.
Met Isaac's wife, and
Maureen.
yes, and,
Maureen Starkey.
Yes, exactly.
Married to Ringo.
Yes.
I know Isaac used to say, "Here's Maureen Starkey. She was married to Ringo. She's my greatest piece of rock and roll memorabilia."
That's Ringo Starr's.
Maureen was awesome. She was, oh boy, she loved all his friends. She loved us all, even though we were the boys and distracted from the marriage.
Very gracious. I mean,
Wonderful
she
person.
was just
Wonderful.
being such the hostess
So great.
while we were there. But Isaac is such a spiritual person. Just the zen about him, being in his presence, what he did with the House of Blues, and this is something that Michael, I believe he mentioned this to me, and you can confirm it, that there are urns from 4 corners of the earth that were embedded in the walls of the House of Blues.
Maybe, we took dirt from the crossroads, and every House of Blues under the stage has dirt from the Highway 49 and 61 crossroads, which is the region it's supposed to be where Robert Johnson sold his soul to the devil to acquire better vocal and guitar skills and get hit records, and he did. That's the great Crossroads legend. So we do have the dirt there, but he may have, because he would, our wall there had all the religious symbols, to coexist together. Unity and diversity was our motto.
Yep. And hidden rooms, which I didn't know they were there at first in the foundation room, and then they had the wall, which was heavily decorated, and that wall would actually open up, and it'd be yet another small little private room. And so I was
Puja rooms to pray in.
Yeah.
No, I missed the club in LA. It was beautiful.
Me too.
Now there's just an aluminum and glass tower going in there. That's all.
Like everywhere, this is a full-time construction zone. No matter where you live in Los Angeles, it seems.
Traffic here. Are you kidding me? Wow. What's going on?
I keep
It
thinking.
takes 20 minutes to go everywhere now. An hour and 20.
I know. You trying to ask a question, sir?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Shout it out. Here, let me bring the mic over there so everybody can hear it.
Hello, thank you. Just to start, personal thank you, because my wife and I met at the Old House of Blues in West Hollywood. So, of course, we miss it. So thanks for everything you did in terms of getting those locations up and running. We've seen some of the footage of international theme park attractions based on Ghostbusters. Just wondering do you know if there's any plans for anything in the US in the future?
There's a company called Void, and they've got a great thing that tours, and it goes out into shopping malls and public event spaces, and basically you walk in, they kit you out with pack and thrower and trap, or not the trap, the pack and the thrower, and they put you into an environment, and you use the equipment to neutralize spirits and entities, and at one point they get you where you're just 35 floors up above Manhattan with no railing there. You're looking down and they're coming at you out of the sky. It's really a really powerful, exciting, what would you call like a gallery game, and it's very impressive, and I think that's kind of stuff you can look for. Also, we've got the Activision video game that we're gonna remaster. We remastered that's coming out, and that was almost like the third movie. They told a great story in there, and I really was pleased with the images in that. If you play that on a big screen in a nice home theater, it's quite impressive. There's a team from Japan that are working on audio-visual kind of a reality VR experience with goggles and hand for thrower technology. Yeah. So, but as far as a big theme park ride, I don't know. I think the Void thing is the closest to what's going on up there in that world. Yes. I'm wearing the, well, I'm going to tell you right now. You come down there, you pull over for speed and you come to my court, we're going to have a good party. I'll get the Dutch country Herefords into you. Oh yeah, they're good. The little sharp mustard on there, you can stay all night. I got a bedroom for you. Stay all week if you want. All week, all month. Bring your family. I know you got a good honest face. You'll be all right there, yeah. Well, anybody, yes.
Do all those characters live inside of you all the time?
Pretty much. Some, they're asleep, most of them, thank Christ.
We have a gentleman that traveled a long ways to, I think he wants to ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
Hello again. I was just wondering, in Ghostbusters, you actually catch ghosts and hold them in a storage facility.
Mm-hmm.
Now, did you ever think about what would it take, if it is possible, to destroy a ghost or transform it?
We didn't want to destroy them. We wanted to hold them, and we wanted to eventually figure out technology to send them across back where they belong. But, you know, so many resist going back. They don't want to go back. That's why there are ghosts. They just don't want to go back. Loop ghosts, loop hauntings, they just want to stay there. So our idea was, okay, we can contain them and at some point get to the point, you know, in the science where we could send them back across. You had a question?
After the incident in '80, have you made good with the Chicago Police Department?
Which one was that?
Did y'all hear his question?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay.
Which incident was that?
The car downtown City Hall.
Oh, you mean? Oh, yes. You mean? Oh, yeah. Yeah. No. They like me there. I think so.
There you go.
Hello. You wrote a screenplay for Ghostbusters Hellbent. And I would like to ask you, is there any possibility that it will be transcend into a book or a comic book, the Ghostbusters Hellbent? Because I've heard it's a wonderful script.
Yeah, it's a good script. I think we're going to get Jason's movie made. We have an animated idea we want to do. And then the prequel idea for, and another animated show, prequel idea, I have Ghostbusters High, where they all meet, the three of them meet, Venkman and Stantz and Spengler. And then, Hellbent, I could see once all those get made, I could see it being a film. Because it introduces a whole new kind of concept in the story, and it would tie into to the past without depending too much on it. Yeah, but it would make a good comic book, sure. Yeah, or great video game. There's some really neat equipment in that story. Really neat.
Like what? Now you got me curious. What's talking about?
Oh, like interplanar interceptor. You just get in it and you go from Manhattan. You flick a switch and you're in Manhattan.
Okay, like an alternate universe?
Manhattan, yeah.
Okay, got it. All right, here's another question.
Alec Baldwin as the devil.
I can believe that.
Hi, Dan.
Yeah.
Paranormal question for you. So we believe in extraterrestrials. We believe in spirits, right?
I do.
Well, I do too.
Okay,
That's,
good.
I said
we do.
We're
Okay,
sticking
good.
with exclusive club here.
Good enough.
Okay, so what's your thoughts on cryptids? Things like Mothman, Bigfoot, Public Monster.
Well, Doug Meldrum at the University of South Dakota, he's a paleontologist. He has pretty compelling evidence that Bigfoot, Sasquatch, is a real thing. He's got footprints. He's got spoor. He's a doctor in paleontology, so I've seen some convincing evidence there. There was an Olympian. Her name was Gabrielle Reese, and she was on a camping trip up north in Winnebago, up in Washington State, I think it was. And a Sasquatch attacked their camper, and she has footage of it, and she's told me that story a couple of times. I always ask her about it, and she still gets a chill when she thinks about it. Mothman, pretty neat story there. They made a movie with Richard Gere about it, yeah. And let's see, well, there's, then Yeti, still stories about Yeti, the Jersey Devil, Chupacabra. There's a reason they're out there. At the very least, it's entertaining. Yes, sir.
I was wondering, will we ever get to see any of the footage or the version of Ghostbusters 2 that features you as the evil Ray?
It's well, the Evil Ray is in Ghostbusters too. The Evil Ray is there. I don't know if there's any more of the Evil Ray, but it's in there.
In the comic book, it has a lot more where you're driving the car crazy.
Okay. Well, in the movie, they cut it down to the right. You know, they edited it properly. That movie moves along really well. I was evil there.
Evil-ish.
Yes.
Evil-ish.
Gilda Radner, do you think she would have been a good Ghostbuster?
Oh, she could have done anything. Absolutely. You know, she would have been wonderful. She could have been great as Janine, the secretary, right? But we had Annie Potts. Come on, you can't complain. Yes, lady, Ghostbuster.
You're fantastic. Thank you so much. There are so many amazing one-liners that are just part of, at least in our house, everyday vernacular. Just curious, if you have a favorite line from one or two. Two might be my favorite. Just saying.
I think all of Murray's dialogue, just his, the speech about the cats and dogs and, rain, the speech in City Hall, there's the passion there was fantastic. He was great. Yes, sir. Yeah. Yeah, sir, go ahead, yeah.
It's, as I've heard, when you wrote the original script for the sequel, you wanted Dana to get kidnapped to Scotland. Why is that?
Well, I wanted to get out of New York City, and also, there are other countries where there are ghosts, and lots of them there. I felt like that we could do a beautiful location there, and meet a kind of a banshee-like entity that comes from legend that would be quite frightening. Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Back to the metaphysical. Earlier was mentioned thought forms, and I was wondering what your take on, because my wife and I have a theory on this. What something in pop culture like the Slender Man or the Rake, that's being popularized now, could do or manifest in terms of like the Man of the Fedora, the sort of recurring physical theme being brought about by sort of a cultural mind form.
Well, Slender Man certainly came to life in the attack that those two girls perpetrated on their friend. Now, Slender Man seems to me to be just a digital phenomenon. The Fedora guy is like, he's not from the internet.
Right.
So we hope that Slender Man remains in the domain of the digital. But you never know. Look at Annabelle.
What Slender Man does.
Use the meat tenderizer on her.
Yeah, I know. I was ready to swing that thing. But what Slender Man shows that a thought can cross over into the physical realm through other people's actions.
Yeah, into the perfect perfidious behavior of humankind, which is what happened there. Yeah.
It's infectious.
Yeah.
Ghostbusters 2016 used the idea of ley lines, and I know that Lilydale exists on ley lines.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about the idea that that is a path?
Oh, it's neat to look at those old maps in Europe and see where they pass through, and then you look and you see this X, and there's a tower or a castle or something, a henge or something that's been built there. And why that structure there? Well, because it's the cross of a ley line. Yeah, no, I think the whole planet has that kind of energy running through it.
Dan,